Russel Maurice Johnson, born 1947, dubbed the Bedroom Strangler, is a rapist and serial killer who sexually assaulted and murdered several women in the late 1970s in London, Guelph, Ontario, Canada. He killed 7 women and had 11 sexual assaults. Russel Johnson experienced a lot of trauma in his childhood, including sexual abuse at 14-year-old. He grew up dirt poor in a home with 2 brothers and mentally ill parents. Russel's father didn't allow his sons to celebrate Christmas. He believed the stores were owned by Jews who simply wanted to drain Christian pockets of money. Religious observances were heavily enforced. Russel went to church every day and confession once a week. He says the overall message was, "You could do wrong, but just don't get caught." At the age of 13, he came to the attention of police for stealing women's underwear off clotheslines and for being a peeping Tom. Like many psychopaths, he quit school early. Psychopaths, despite their intelligence, education is considered a waste of time because there are many other ways to assert dominance. Russel Johnson married young and had a child, and left his family, he claims, when his wife cheated on him. He says he channeled his anger into bodybuilding and, often at night, would consume a steady flow of diet pills and alcohol. That's when the rape started. Russel Johnson is one of the most alarming cases in Canada's criminal history. Johnson literally got away with murder 4 times. In the 1970s, the cities of London and Guelph in the province of Ontario were hosts to 4 cases of women found dead in their homes with no suspicion of foul play. What transpired to be 4 undetected murders took place over a 10-month period, and in each case the victim apparently died peacefully in her sleep. The first of the 4 was 20-year-old student Mary Hicks, found dead in bed in London on the 19th of October 1973. She was in a natural sleeping position and there were no obvious marks of violence on her body. A pillow partly covering her face was not considered suspicious. As there was no sign of forced entry into her apartment, Miss Hicks' death was attributed to suffocation caused by a reaction to a prescription drug. 1 month later, Alice Ralston, 42 years old, was found dead in bed in her Guelph apartment. Again, there was no visible sign of violence. Miss Ralston was known to have suffered from hardening of the arteries, and this was thought to have caused her untimely death. On the 4th of March 1974, Eleanor Hartwick died at her home in London and, as in the case of Alice Ralston, her death was put down to a reaction to prescription drugs. It was not until August that the last of the deaths was reported, this time of 49-year-old Doris Brown. On this occasion, a pathologist found minor abrasions and some blood in her throat and rectum, but the police were not called in to investigate, and death was certified as from pulmonary edema. Then a killing occurred about which there could be no doubt. On the 31st of December, Diane Bites was found strangled with her own brassiere in her apartment in Guelph. She had been sexually assaulted after death. In April 1977, Luella Jean George was strangled and robbed of some jewelry and underwear which were later found dumped in a garbage can a few blocks away. Finally, 22-year-old Donna Veldboom was found strangled in her apartment just a short distance from the previous murder site. This time the victim had been slashed in the chest with a knife. When police investigating the killing of Donna Veldboom compared a list of tenants of the apartment block with details of sexual deviance on record, the name Russel Johnson emerged. Johnson had also once lived in the building where Luella George had been strangled. Further inquiries established a number of non-fatal sexual assaults on women by Johnson, both before and after he had been admitted to a psychiatric hospital diagnosed as a compulsive sex attacker. At his trial in February 1978, Johnson was charged with the Bites, George and Veldboom murders, and found not guilty by reason of insanity. He was committed to the maximum security wing of the Ontario Mental Health Centre. Following the trial, police authorities published a complete dossier on the crimes admitted by Johnson, including the 4 natural deaths. In 2009, Russell Maid was making a temporary move to Brockville Medium Security Psychiatric Hospital. Dr. John Bradford said that Russel Johnson will be transferred to the Medium Security Forensic Unit at the Brockville Mental Health Centre for what he called a temporary treatment consultation. That consultation, which Bradford said will examine what types of treatment are suitable for Johnson and the possible effectiveness, was ordered by the Ontario Review Board following a hearing last October. Bradford will conduct the assessment and would not say when the temporary move will happen, or if it has already. It is certainly happening and it will be happening. We will be implementing the order, said Bradford, Associate Chief of the Royal Ottawa Healthcare Group responsible for forensic psychiatry. The Brockville facility is part of the Royal Ottawa Group. Johnson, 61, has been confined to the maximum security Oak Ridge Psychiatric Institution in Penetanguishene since 1978, when he was found not guilty by reason of insanity in the killings of 3 women. Johnson was sent to trial for the murders of 2 women from London, Donna Veldboom, 22, and Luella George, 22, as well as 23-year-old Diane Bites of Guelph. According to published reports, since that 78 court decision, he has confessed to killing 4 other women and several sexual assaults. He has been dubbed the Bedroom Strangler because his victims were smothered to death in their beds. In some of the attacks, Johnson scaled apartment walls as high as 15 stories to reach his victims. Brockville Police Deputy Chief Adrian Geraghty said the force is aware of Johnson's pending transfer here. He said the serial killer's move to the Brockville Psychiatric Facility is not currently a concern to police. "No, we don't have any concerns. He's got restricted conditions on him and the mental health people will advise us if there are any concerns," he said. Bradford said if Johnson were to have any access to the community during his temporary stay, it would be under police escort. "Brockville Mental Health Centre will notify us at such time if he is ever to enter the community," confirmed Geraghty. Bradford stressed the Review Board, which controls the movement of patients within Ontario's forensic mental health system, closely examined the request last fall. The hearing would have included input from the Crown on any public safety concerns, information about security at the Brockville facility and Johnson's decades-long record while institutionalized. Although he would not reveal the exact timeline for Johnson's stay, Bradford said, "It's a matter of months rather than a year." He dismissed the suggestion the assessment here is necessarily a step toward Johnson being permanently transferred to medium security. "It's one thing coming for consultation," said Bradford. "It's very much another coming on a permanent basis with rehabilitation over time being put in place." Johnson's request for a transfer to Brockville from Penetanguishene has been turned down in the past. A London Free Press article on a transfer request Johnson made during a hearing in 2000 quoted the counsel for the Attorney General as opposing the move. "He's too great of a risk to be released from maximum security, the problem being that in medium security facilities, there are women patients," said Jeff Beasley. "He represents a risk to women patients." Beasley, then an assistant Crown attorney in London, had been connected with Johnson's case for 11 years. When asked yesterday about the threat Johnson presents to staff and patients, Bradford conceded in forensic psychiatry, there is never such a thing as no risk. What the issue is a risk management approach to it. He said measures including separating Johnson from female patients could be taken, but didn't say if such risk management steps will be taken ahead of Johnson's arrival. Bradford was careful to note that unlike some patients who come for an assessment, Johnson has a detailed record from his time in Penetanguishene that can help manage his risk today. "There's a long-standing institutional record which has been very good," he noted. Further, he said Johnson has been temporarily released to other psychiatric facilities in the past for treatment consultations. Could a person with Johnson's violent history ever be released? Bradford said in his 30-year career, he has rehabilitated people with extremely violent pasts. A number of them now who have been in the community for more than 10 years and have never committed another offense, he added. That said, Bradford stressed, the opportunity of ever being able to treat and rehabilitate somebody with a serious history of sexually motivated homicide is pretty rare. But later on 2010 the victims' families appealed and Russell sent back to the high-security mental hospital.